Right. Here we go. It's week 11 of the NFL season. And we got the WolfPack, DFS Army Pros Pod, where we break down the week 11 slate, going with all the DFS Army experts, Sharps. I got Kyle Big Marley, as always, the sleeveless man, 17-inch guns. I've got John Alessia here with me, Statsational, with a head of hair that I could only dream about, and a beautiful glass of bourbon. We've got my man, a special guest, Burnsy, the shark autopsy specialist, the DraftKings Millie Maker specialist, two-time King of the Beach finalist, multi-time top 10 finisher in the DraftKings Millie Maker. So this is fucking awesome. And we're bouncing, baby. We got the WolfPack. Right. All right, enough of that. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. And we're here. This is a big week for me. I was just telling you guys off air because King of the Beach Part 2 is this weekend. It's a 200-person contest. 75 people make it to Part 3, and it's a lot of pressure. And I know Adam Burns, you're in it as well. And we're already making plans to go chill on the beach. It's like, dude, you got to make it there first. You know what I'm saying? Like, you feeling good about this weekend? You feeling good about this weekend, Adam?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a really good weekend. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good weekend this weekend.
I hope so. They jacked up the salary.
Actually.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is they jacked up the salaries on DraftKings this week. And I got the DraftKings screen open here. We're going to do a little format for the people who are listening to this or watching this rather than listening to it, watching the video. So I'm going to keep the screen open because I figure why not have a little reference point of what the hell we're talking about in salaries. But DraftKings jacked up the salaries at a lot of position groups. You can see like even Zeke Elliott, who hasn't done a whole lot, 9K, all of the matchups, 10-5 for McCaffrey. You've got Mike Thomas. Has there ever been a more expensive wide receiver on DraftKings than this?
It's pretty pricey, but I mean, he just keeps pounding it every week. I think he's 14 catches away from 100 this year, which who knows? This week he might get it.
He might get
10K 1 week, like 2-3 years ago.
Wait, who was that price?
Antonio Brown.
He hit 10K. Yeah, see, Antonio Brown, peak Antonio Brown could get you there. But I mean, Mike Thomas is operating as peak Antonio Brown right now, and he's got the greatest matchup in the history of matchups. On paper, the Bucs, we know what they do for opposing wide receivers. I want everything to do with this game. But, 13, 14 targets, 11. I mean, the dude is so consistent. He's almost a better play than the pay-up running back. I mean, you could make an argument. Maybe we'll talk about that on this breakdown. Could you make an argument that I should pay 10K for Thomas and then forego Christian McCaffrey on the slate? Like, is there any argument for that? Is that even arguable? Like, John, can I make that argument?
I think you could definitely make that argument. Because I think you've got some options at running back that are a little bit cheaper. So I think you can go that route where you go wide receiver, pricey, and then maybe take a little bit more value at the running back position.
Yeah, I guess it depends. It comes back to where the value is. And I think we're going to discover a lot of value at wide receiver as well. Some value at running back this week, a lot of value at wide receiver, and really a kind of an ugly tight end position. That's what I've come across so far. I don't know what you guys are feeling on it, but that's, as I've tried to put together my initial lineups, that's where I've gone. So let's start as we always do. And I'm going to try to figure out how to work this with 4. The more people, it's a little bit trickier for me. So bear with me. But I'm going to try to figure out how to make this work with 4. But we're going to start with the quarterback position. And really the types of the games that we're looking at stacking, teams, games, and what kind of stacks we want to do. So Adam, I'll start with you. You've studied Millie Maker winners, right? Give me a guideline for what type of game and what kind of quarterback stack really I should be looking for if I'm trying to win a massive tournament. Like, is ownership the key? Am I going like slightly off of chalk? Like, everybody's going to be on those, the Breeze, against Tampa. I mean, it's so obvious. Or Lamar Jackson. Is there any place I could go? Do I need to go be different, or can I just get onto one of those and just like go crazy with the stack?
I would say ownership is a massive indicator of what wins Millie Makers. Last week, I started getting on Daniel Jones. The line movement in that game was huge. It put me on Daniel Jones more than probably any other quarterback on the slate, simply because of the line movement. And what happened is that I didn't go enough with him. I only went about 10% with him, and that was good, but it wasn't enough for me. And I didn't actually double stack him with Tate
you needed Slate and Tate together. Yeah, Slate. Yeah. What do they say? Slate and Taten, Slayton. I don't know what his name is. You needed them both.
Birds, when you say the line movement, what were you seeing in that game?
What I saw was the total actually jumped, and the spread actually lowered from. Let me pull up those last week's close, but from opening to close, or right around close of the Sunday games, what I saw was the opening line versus the closing line was like there was drastic movement there. And what I saw, so it opened up at 41 with a 1.5 spread, and that was on the Jets. So it was in the favor of the Jets at 1.5 at open. And then it closed at 43, but the spread actually moved to the Giants at -3. And so what I was thinking was, well, geez, that's a 4.5 point swing right there. And it's into the favor of the Giants, and it must be that the Giants they think that the Giants are actually going to put up some serious points in this game, and that Daniel Jones is going to be a benefactor. I didn't really think the running game was going to be as much of a benefactor as it was going to be the passing game, and it turned out to be that way. So those are little things that, like, if you can follow over the course of the week, or even towards like Saturday, like right now going into Friday, Saturday, and you start seeing those little movements, you can actually pick up on them and maybe use them to your advantage.
I love that. And, it was funny. The game total was kind of low on that game, but the Jets defense it's like a baby version of Tampa. They've been pretty good against running backs so far this year. Like, no running back has really smashed them. They haven't gone up against anybody spectacular, but even in Zeke didn't do anything, and Barkley hasn't done anything. And, I think they played against Nick Chubb. These running backs have not smashed the Jets, and they're very vulnerable via the pass. So yeah. I mean, it's funny. We liked Golden Tate, and we kind of like Slayton. This is what bringing that around to this week. And so I want to ask you then this question, because let's say we all kind of like DJ Moore. I think we'd all agree we like DJ Moore a little bit this week, right? I mean, I do, right? He's on my list. I'm looking at him. He gets 10 targets every week. I like him. And then I'm like, I kind of like Samuel, and also kind of like Greg Olsen. And then I was like, what about Kyle Allen? And is that even sneaky, or is that so obvious that it's probably almost too obvious for a Millie Maker play? You know what I mean? Like, this guy hasn't done anything except for that 1 week where we all played him in cash. Kyle, remember that? Or that was Keg. But he hasn't done much since week 1, but he's the only cheap quarterback that I've seen viable. Do you see any cheap, viable kind of quarterbacks along those lines as well? Is Kyle Allen on your radar, Burns?
I started listening to the lines, the Vegas lines pod with you and John, and honestly, to tell you the truth, I wasn't on Allen at the start of the week. I was.
Well, we lost Burns, but how about you, John?
I do like Allen this week. Just kind of looking at it as far as the cheap options. I don't see, I think you've got several options here this week, and he's going to be one of the top ones for me. So, but as far as the cheap, he's definitely the cheapest option that I like on the board this week. And yeah, I'm just, who are you really paying up? I mean, you've got Lamar Jackson is the real expensive one, and then everyone else is kind of lingering a little bit in that mid-6 range, right?
I mean, Drew Brees is looking tasty at 6,900. If you can squeeze him in there, he's got the cheat code, opposition going on with those Bucks, man.
Is Tom Brady going to be a play this week? We talked about him, like he just hasn't been the guy. Are we just going to totally pass on Brady, or you got to have some shares of it?
Nah, you don't have to have some shares. What's the upside for Brady? 25 points. Like, do I need that when he's mixed in? We did talk about it, and the more I think about him, it's like, what's the upside here? He's not a 30 plus point guy, no matter what. And he's priced up here, too close to Breeze, too close to Dak. I'm not going Garoppolo there, but there's just a lot going on in this whole range here. Like, if you look at it, all right, Lamar Jackson, he's going to get us, 25 plus every single week just because he almost can't help himself. His style just does that. Drew Brees is a little more volatile, but he's got the Bucks. I mean, last week he had Atlanta. It looked really good, and he burned you. But now he's got the Bucks. So now it's like GPP only because last week, I guess because last week he sucked, that means we can't go right back to it. How about you, Kyle? What are you thinking here in this range, high end of the quarterback range for game stacks, team stacks? Who are you looking at? And is anybody are you on board with Tom Brady at 6,400? Is that a play you're trying to load up on in tournaments? Where are you at with this?
See, I would say the high end Breeze is my favorite, definitely for game stacks as well. And then the low end, Kyle Allen. Those are going to be my top 2 quarterbacks of the week. I think for cash, I would lock in Allen, I think, on my cash games because I want to pay up for the running backs there. And I actually love just locking in Allen and C-Mac and just getting all the Carolina points. So that's probably going to be my move in cash. And then for GPPs, I might get away from that and go like Matt Ryan at lower ownership, go with the same game stacks there. Maybe even Jameis Winston on the other side of Breeze because nobody's going to be on him. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to make it to Brady. Maybe on the early only slate, just because it's a good matchup, and the early only slate's kind of ugly. So I can see me going hedging with some Brady on that one. But yeah, I'm not going to take any shots on him on the main slate, and I would just rather use his targets instead.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on 2 guys that I really like. I always love Jameis Winston. I don't think there's a week that's passed that I haven't been on Jameis Winston. And it's funny because I think, and we lost Adam again, but it's funny because what happens with Winston is everybody wants the other team. Everybody focuses on Drew Brees, and it's like, hey, you guys forgot that Jameis Winston is over here doing Jameis Winston things.
Well, I say that you just kind of went. I think Geek we lost him there. But Marley, you still with me, or did I lose?
Yeah,
all right.
Still here.
I didn't know if it was me or just the Geek. But yeah, he was talking about going on the other side of the quarterbacks there in those games. But that's something I started looking at a couple of years ago. Where I would just kind of focus in on one QB in a game because I'm like, yeah, this guy's in a really good matchup, and almost. I mean, I don't want to say it's exclusively. I don't know how you feel about it, Kyle, but if you like a quarterback. If you really like a quarterback, a lot of times you got to take a second look at the opposite quarterback because if one quarterback's going off, there's a good chance sometimes the other quarterback might as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do with both those games. I feel like Breeze and Allen are going to be the chalky 2, so I have no issues going lower ownership to the other 2 with just as much, if not more, upside.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, it looks like I'm hosting now. So it's you and me, man. If you leave, that's it. I'm done. I'm clicking the X out, and we're starting over. I can't do this by myself.
Fair enough.
But I'm gonna play the geek role here. So he's going through the quarterbacks. Let me kind of look down. Who else? So what about? I mean, the guy who was was all the talk last week and the highest salary guy. What do we think about Lamar against Houston?
It's tough at 7,700 because, like I said, I want to pay up for the running backs this week. and there's no way you're going to be able to get, C-Mac, Michael Thomas, and Lamar Jackson into your lineups. So I just don't think I'm going to be able to pay up at 7,700 really in any lineups, because I don't trust them enough to stack them with anybody. And I could see this game getting a decent amount of ownership because it could be a shootout, two of the best quarterbacks going at it. So I might just avoid it and maybe go contrarian and play the defenses.
Yeah, what's been interesting with the Lamar games is like you just don't know if he's stackable. I think the Miami game and then last week he wasn't just stackable; it was like stackable with two guys on his team, like Andrews and Brown. Yeah. And then so we were sitting here on I believe we were sitting on this podcast last week, and you're like, well, we're gonna probably want to just use Lamar naked, maybe just throw a few in, and then he goes and he's great with two guys on his team, two pass catchers. So it's kind of tough to figure with Lamar sometimes. Like, do you just play him naked, or do you stack him? And the good thing with the thing is when you stack him is you get his options are cheap, so he's expensive, but then sometimes his pass catchers are cheap. So it becomes a cheaper stack.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got the boys back.
We are back.
And, my issue is with the Lamar Jackson stacking. Like Marquise Brown had a good game last week. He had 18 DraftKings points, but he caught 4 of 4 targets, and he only saw 19 snaps on the whole day. So it's just the opportunities aren't there for the stacks that I would like to get to. And then when you combine that with the price tag of Lamar Jackson, it's just pretty much stay away from me. But I've been burned before going the stay away route. So I wouldn't try and talk anybody off of it. It's just personally, I'm not going to build 150 this week. I'm going back to my 3 entry maxes, and he's just not going to make the cut.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, like I said, Lamar Jackson, the beautiful thing about him, the quarterback himself, is the floor is massively high. The other nice thing, I guess it's nice that you don't have to stack. So it's one of those times where you could just like play your favorite players at every position without having to worry too much about correlating with the quarterback. But the negative is, yeah, he is pretty expensive. I do think here though that you will see the best of Lamar Jackson going up against this Houston team, and a team that can score, and a team that I think is very good. So we see him at his best when he's very good. Let's talk about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, been spectacular all year. He's got another good matchup. Detroit, not a very good team. Detroit maybe has the backup quarterback going for them. Detroit, very bad against the run. They got the price of Zeke jacked up like crazy here. So tell me, Adam, Burnsy, is Dak on... Does Dak profile as the kind of person that you'd run in a Millie Maker lineup? Like, are you stacking up the Cowboys here? Does he profile as your style of play?
Not in this week. I don't think without Stafford with Detroit, I don't think Detroit does anything to make this a game. So no, I'm not really interested in Dak this week at all.
Yeah, I have that same thought. Dak made my first lineup that I put together just because he fit. And then, he's been so consistent. But then I'm like, can Detroit make a game? And John, you had a different take. You said, you know what? I'm just going to trust the lines. But have they dropped this line? Is this line still live? Like, are they assuming that Stafford is going to play? What's the breakdown in terms of the Vegas odds on this thing?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking it up now. I've got about 1 million windows up. But like I said, the line it's not a blowout line. It was like 4.5. That was what I was estimating it was going to be. There's not, I think, a couple outs. They're showing it like 5. So, it's still one that I'm up in the air. I don't particularly love Dak for MME. I'm gonna, I'm not gonna have a ton of it. I might be in the 4 or 5% range, but I tend to follow the Vegas lines and kind of try to figure out the game script through that. And I think there's just a lot of I'm hearing a lot of like, well, this happens a lot when the opposing quarterback is out. When a quarterback is out, a lot of people don't ever feel like the team can hang in the game. Now, I know Dallas might be better than Chicago, but the Chicago defense is still pretty good. And Detroit was able to hang in that game. I don't know if this game is just necessarily automatically going to be a blowout. But that said, again, I don't know if I love Dak over some of these other options, especially at his price. This is the highest I think he's been all season. But if you look at what Dak's done, it's been impressive, right? I mean, he's just been he's gotten great value almost every week outside that New Orleans game. He's earned
the salary. I mean, he's earned it. He's earned it by playing really well, playing very consistent. Again, I think personally it has a lot more to do with Zeke Elliott kind of not just variance going against him a little bit, not scoring those tutties. And, they've just been going to the passing game for Dallas more than they had in the past. And so you see, and Dak Prescott's, can't deny he's taken steps forward. Amari Cooper is basically now in the conversation with all the other stud wide receivers. I mean, you can't really think that much less of him than, any of these other types, the Godwins and the Evans and all the other guys that have been doing pretty well, the Julio Joneses of the world. And I don't know, I'm not going to put him on Mike Thomas level yet, but he's up there and he's been great. And so it's weird because Dak becomes stackable when he's got weapons in the passing game that are doing really well. Let's see if we can find some low owned, interesting pieces here. One guy I'm thinking about that and I'm only thinking about him because I wasn't originally thinking of him looking over the slate is, Josh Allen, and the only for GPPs, but this is another Millie Maker special where no one wants to play Josh Allen. Yeah, he's at Miami, but the idea is Miami probably can't score, and these Buffalo games are always really low scoring. But I do remember a game when Lamar Jackson, in a sort of better version of Josh Allen role, went down to Miami and just put up 49 points on them and just like styled on those guys and went bananas. So is it possible that Josh Allen, even at an inflated price, finally has a ceiling game in this spot? Like, Burns, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a great spot for Allen. Just as you said, like Lamar blew up against him. Allen has the same potential to blow up here. He's not as good as Lamar, but he's still got the potential.
He's a shitty version of Lamar.
Yeah. I was trying to give him a little credit.
No, it's a bad version of Lamar. That is credit. Lamar's like awesome. So, if you're like a bad version of awesome, that's not bad. He's all right. I have Josh Allen on my dynasty team. All right. So any other pay down options, Kyle? Like we talked about Kyle Allen. Do you want to sniff anybody else down here? Is Ryan Finley, the new Red Rocket, someone of interest?
No, not at all for me. I'd say Jeff Driscoll, if anybody, I'd rather go to him. But it's mostly just going to be Kyle Allen for me. I just think that Jeff Driscoll's in play for like the rushing upside. They should be playing from behind. He's got some good receivers to throw to. So I don't hate a play on him at 4,600, but it's not a guy that I'm going to force into lineups at all, especially when we have Kyle Allen with the higher team total, more talent around him for only 700 more.
Jeff Driscoll put up 19 fantasy points against a pretty good Chicago defense, John. Like, is this the kind of guy that makes his way into your MME this week? You already talked about, like, if I like the Dallas pieces, it's probably because Detroit is hanging in the game. You're telling me that the odds makers think Detroit will hang. Now, I happen to know from inside information that Detroit doesn't have a running back on their roster. They have J.D. McKissick, who's really more of a pass catcher. So how, if they're keeping up, how does it not lead to like at least some sort of scoring for Driscoll? Unless you're saying Matty Prater is going to come out there and kick 5 field goals, get 15 points.
For MME, I think you definitely want to have some shares. I will, not a ton, but I think you just want to kind of mix it in because that gives you the opportunity to maybe have combos of high price guys that not a lot of people are going to have. Like a Thomas and McCaffrey, perhaps, with a couple of low options. Just some real unique lineups if you're playing in the big GPPs. But yeah, not going overboard here. But one guy that we didn't mention at the quarterback, and it's not super low, but what about Derek Carr at 6,100? Kind of a good matchup.
I purposefully skipped him because fuck Derek Carr, man. That guy
The upside is limited.
He never passes 300 yards. Like, they're just going to hand it to Jacob. It is a great matchup. Kyle, you're chuckling. Do you like D-Rock Carr over there?
I like him a little bit. He'll be a top 5 option for me. I'd say I would rank it Kyle Allen, Drew Brees, and then that's my top 2 for sure. And then 3 through 5, it gets a little blurry between, I would say, Winston, Carr, and Ryan. I don't really have a list of those 3. I would just put them right there, bulk them together.
If I showed you his game log that never crosses 20 points and never really crosses 300 yards and just miserable all the time.
But it's a great spot.
It is a great spot.
By the way, the Josh Allen, his last 2 games against Miami were sick. You know, they played Miami last year.
Was that one of his like 30 pointers, 40
that
pointers?
Was 40. He had 41.5 points in that game. He ran for like 100 and something yards in that game, I think. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people have been thinking about that the last 2 games because he had the 41 against them, and then I think he had 34 against them in his other matchup. So he's had big games against Miami.
You know, if you believe in BVP,
yeah,
then
with that large sample,
then QBVT could be a thing as well. QB versus team. Burns has a knowing smile, almost like a like he's the wheels are turning over there. He's like, I do like Josh Allen more and more, and I'm going to use him at 2% owned in Millie Maker and take home all the monies. Okay, I like that. Now with Josh Allen and with Driscoll, I was thinking about Driscoll. You could almost play him unstacked. Like, I have a problem playing Kenny Galladay and paying like high dollar salary, 6,700, if he's attached to Driscoll. And I think that I feel even worse about Marvin Jones Jr.'s jacked up salary level, with in concert with Driscoll. Like, I just don't like these 2 guys. I'm kind of trying to figure out if I could just run him out there naked as a $4,600 quarterback that I hope gets me 20 points, regardless of how he gets there. Hopefully he does a little bit with his legs, and then just have a unique lineup construction because I just have a little more salary to mess with than everybody else. Is that viable? John, would you ever do that in a tournament?
I would, but I would add that I would, if you're going to do that, if you're not going to use one of the Detroit wide receivers, maybe use Driscoll with the Dallas wide receiver.
That's fair. Or we could call J.D. McKissick a wide receiver, because I don't mind that. I'd rather play J.D. McKissick. I just don't like the crappy. I don't want to be forced to pay up for Kenny Galladay. Like, they should have reduced Kenny Galladay to like 5,900, and then I would have been like, I'm liking this combo here. But at 60, I'll have to check FanDuel and see what their salaries look like. All right, let's jump over, as we're talking about it, to the wide receiver position this week, and we're starting up at the top. And I'll start with you, Kyle. Top of the list here. You see it on the screen. Got Mike Thomas up there. It's hard to really like anyone else when Mike Thomas is like a shining light at the tunnel here. But are you paying up this week for any of these other guys outside of Stacks? I know you love Julio. How has he done? How has Julio done against Bradbury and Carolina in the past? Is it worth paying up for him? Can we get cheaper guys? The Hooper thing. So give me a little breakdown of what your feelings are at the top end of the salary range here at the wide receiver position. And if you see yourself paying up for 1 or 2 of these guys this week outside of forced game stacks.
Yeah, mine's mostly going to be around the stacks because I love the Carolina-Atlanta game, the Tampa Bay-New Orleans game. So I'm going to be using all those guys, Michael Thomas, Julio, Evans, Godwin. I'm just going to be mixing them in, try and find some value where I can. And if I can get to these guys, then I want them. But I would say for their prices, Julio is going to be my favorite. I got a little bit of bias there, but I also like that game more, and he's $2,400 cheaper than Michael Thomas. It's just so hard to get to Michael Thomas when I prefer going C-Mac over him this week. So he's my pay-up guy, and that's going to limit what I can do with my Thomas lineups. So for me, it's going to be Julio first. Then I would say Godwin second because Evans probably has the Lattimore matchup. I like that game for stacking. And then I put Thomas as my third favorite. just points per salary wise for all three of those. But yeah, Julio's going to be a guy that I almost am always tournament only with him, but this week I think he's cash viable.
I mean, I don't hate it with Hooper gone. They're going to have to, somebody's got to absorb the targets, and I do think Julio's in line here. I mean, again, it's a great matchup. I don't know about Bradbury one-on-one. I need to look at game logs between Julio and the Panthers in the past because I just want to see how that's gone. This is a divisional matchup, so I want to see how they've gone in the past. But
300-yard game was against the Panthers, but I don't know if Bradbury was there or not.
Yeah,
last year it was bad. His 2 games against Carolina were pretty bad last year.
Yeah, they were, and that was Bradbury, right? That was the same cornerback.
So he had 4 for 28 in Week 16 against Carolina, and then 5 for 64, no touches.
Brutal.
Against Carolina. Yeah,
it's a brutal pay up, and there is something to be said here for the Bradbury effect scenario, the Sanu effect scenario doubling down, and the Hooper effect scenario. And think of all of those effects as arrows. And who are they pointing at? Look, arrows, right? Wait, let me do a demonstration, okay? We've got the Hooper effect, right? And we've got the Bradbury effect, and we've got no Mohamed Sanu. And who's it pointing at? Calvin Ridley. Calvin, that was the closest I've done to special effects on this show ever. Calvin Ridley. So, what do you think about Calvin Ridley as like a high volume potential guy that should be looking at more than his usual 6 targets per game, but we've seen him crush with 6 targets. Like, does that raise up the possibility of a Calvin Ridley who never gets more than, he's between 5 and 7 every single week for the most part? Could we get a 10-bagger like the Philadelphia game this week where we get the 27 points? John.
You want to know about Ridley? I'm just looking up Hooper. I kind of want to see how many targets Hooper. So Hooper looks like he's averaging like
he's been 8 or 9.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, he had the one game at 11, so he's probably around the 7-8 targets a game, kind of average. So they have to go somewhere with those, right? So I do kind of like bumping Ridley up a little bit here. And
also, Mohamed Sanu has gone. Now, Gage has gotten those, but I loves me some Gage as a pay down option. So as long as we're sticking with this game, Russell Gage is one of my favorite pay downs on the slate. I don't know that he's got some crazy upside. I'm not sure. Because when a guy gets 9 targets and 7 receptions and still only gets you 12 fantasy points, I mean, he's not running the kind of a route tree probably that, is going to lead to big scores. But
3,300, if he pops for, if he gets you 19-20, it could potentially be good enough.
That should be beyond good enough, 19-20 at that price. But I wouldn't go crazy with this play because, as I said, he does not appear to be someone who's running deep routes. I do think he's in the Sanu role. And I never loved Sanu. Even when he was doing well, he's always kind of this guy that only puts up PPR points and gets a miracle touchdown once in a while. So, he was not a yak guy for me and not quite enough volume. So Gage is interesting, though, as a pay down option in this game as well. Let's continue to look at the upper end of the range. And John, I'll ask you about the Twins from Tampa, since you're in Tampa and you know them well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I party with them all the time.
Now, I assume that when you're out at the bar,
yes,
because Tampa's a small town, that like sometimes you do bump into Mike Evans. And you're like, yo, Mike Evans, what's going on? And he's like, hey, John Alessi, I heard of you at your show the other day. Does that happen or no?
Happens all the time, man.
Small town.
Yeah, used to happen to me a lot in New York when I used to hang out with Jeter and stuff. But now I'm just hanging out with the Bucks.
I once saw Kiki Vandeweghe. Oh no, who's the guy? Tiki Barber.
Tiki Barber, yeah.
Walking in Manhattan. Tiki, what up? That's it. It was just that was it.
That
Manhattan.
Best friends.
That was well worth the story.
Well, yeah, it was a high five though. I legit do that. I'm like, oh. That was one of those. All right, so tell me about the Twins from Tampa. Mike Evans, not as good of a matchup, hasn't done well in this New Orleans matchup at all. He was blanked out with a big donut last time. It's scary when you think of it. Look at the 0 that he got last time. Oh, was he hurt? Nope. He played it. Got the 0. Can we trust Mike Evans to come back against Lattimore, or does Lattimore own him? Like, is CBVWR a thing?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the theme here tonight, right? So
I'm going back to it. Once I figure out a theme, I just go back to it every time.
You got me looking at it now.
Yeah.
Well, they had that monster week. Remember the week 1 where they shocked them, New Orleans last year?
Yes, it was awesome.
And Evans was a monster in that game. But then the next game, they lost like 28-14. And it wasn't that good. I'm not crazy about this matchup from a Tampa State. Obviously, you have to play it here because the potential's here for a little bit of a shootout. So you're gonna, MME, you're gonna have some shares here of both of these guys. If I'm playing one of these single entries, I'm probably avoiding both of them, to be honest. So, they're obviously you have to use them in 150 lineups, but I'm not using them in a core like 3 lineups or even a 20. I would take a shot at fading them.
This week, all I really care about is one awesome lineup. So doing a little different. So I just need to know who you'd play in the one awesome lineup. I know Burns is on that same tip. Now, Burns, does this game appeal to you? Godwin here. No one's going to play him. At some point, both Evans and Godwin, but especially Godwin, has burned people the last few weeks. And people are going to be hesitant to play this guy, but he still gets crazy high volume. It's not like you're talking about a guy here whose volume disappeared. 12, 9, 8, 8, 12, 9, 14. Like, he's still getting the same volume. He just, hasn't scored the touchdowns or hasn't broken free. I don't know what the hell's going on here, but are you going back to Godwin, and are you playing him in your King of the Beach lineup? I need to know exactly what your lineup's going to be.
He won't be in that lineup for me.
He's not making it.
Not at all. No. He will be in my lineups though. I think he's too week to week. He's too volatile. He's getting the targets, but he's not doing much with them. I want to see more out of him. He came in this season as being the one that could be the number one in the, in that wide receiving core, and it's actually turned out to be Evans. But I need to see more from him for him to make like a cash lineup for me or a high dollar single entry lineup in a GPP.
It's risky. So I will exit the high end of the tier here by just saying Michael Thomas is borderline the best value at wide receiver on this entire slate, and he's priced at 9,900. Like, I don't even understand how that can happen. But when you look at the projections for Michael Thomas, he's one of the, like, when you sort by points per dollar value, he does pop as one of the top 3 or 4. Like, it's not like normally when a guy is salaried high like this, you don't even find them on the, you know what? I got to bring up the Dom station. I'll show you, but you don't even find them at all in the rankings. And in the case of Michael Thomas, especially on FanDuel, check this out. I mean, this is going to blow your mind. He's one of the highest points per dollar plays on the entire slate. And you're like, what the fuck? He's 10K. What he's doing? He's up top. So it's pretty wild to see that this guy, it remains a top value. It's crazy.
It's top, but when you're doing GPPs, what you also want to pay attention to is kind of what the what your standard deviation is, and essentially that's just another way to say what your ceiling and floor is on these guys. So you want to play some more volatile guys, and Thomas, even with the high projections, still has the potential to go out there and get you 35 points.
Yeah, he could smash through it.
Yeah, so you have to kind of pay attention to not just what the value is, but certainly in GPPs, the that potential to give you a 5x, 6x. Which is tough to do at his price, but just in general, when you're looking at guys, the 5,000, 6,000 guys, can they get you a 4x, 5x? Do they have that potential? It's what we talk about with, we'll bring up Cole Beasley at some point, I'm sure, and we always joke that's our guy, but kind of limited floor, limited ceiling type of guy.
I wanted to make an all ginger team and started off with like Driscoll or the quarterback for the Bengals, and we can get Beasley on there, but there's no other redheads. That's it. Then I couldn't get it. There was just one. Maybe I'll throw Edelman in there. I'll kind of throw him in the mix as kind of like a redhead.
I remember reading on a message board one time when I first got into DFS, someone did that with hockey where they did a all non-white lineup and won the GPP.
Yeah, that'll happen. I've had all mullet lineups that I've done in various sports. Like, dude has a mullet. Let's put as many mullets in the lineup as we can get and see what that does. Never won, but I mean, hey, in PGA, sometimes I'll just go like an all Kevin lineup because fuck it, I'm Kevin. Why not? There's a bunch of them. So, PGA, it's just random. All right, let's move down the list a little bit and talk about some of these middling plays here. I don't love this 6K. Honestly, there's almost nothing I'm interested in the 6K range down to about 6,100. Like, this whole range is the no man's land. I don't know what's going on with Manny Sanders. I don't know if he's going to play. We have to figure it out. He hasn't practiced, which is a good sign for Deebo Samuel chalk. We don't want Manny Sanders to play. But I do have an interesting running back that we'll talk about in a minute. But if Manny Sanders is out, but this whole group here, outside of like if you're playing that crazy quarterback Driscoll or something like that, where you want to get some of these guys in. Actually, I'll mention one name, and I'll throw this to you, Kyle, first. DJ Shark. We got Nick Foles coming back for the Jaguars. Are we ready to jump right on board with Foles and assume that he's in midseason form and kind of, start targeting DJ Shark here deep?
Absolutely not. I'm the complete opposite. I'd rather stay away from Jacksonville this week. Except for Fournette, but even with Fournette, I'm a little bit worried with Foles coming back. I don't know how he's going to spread out the ball. So I don't really want to touch Chark this week. His price is still pretty high, and like you said, this is no man's land. I don't think I'm gonna have a single 6K wide receiver this week in any of my lineups.
I was checking some cornerback wide receiver matchups, and it's funny. The one that pops off the chart the most is Cortland Sutton going up against Xavier Rhodes, because Xavier Rhodes is one of the worst ranked quarterbacks of the season. Now, Burns, does that blow your mind? I mean, you do the cornerback chart for DFS Army every single week. You should know that. Yeah. You should be telling me this. Why did you not lead the show by saying, Geek, guess what? I figured something out. Xavier Rhodes sucks, and you keep mentioning him as like a well-known cornerback. You're supposed to be telling me. Like, at least DM me behind the scenes like, dude, that guy sucks. Stop mentioning him. He fucking sucks. You should mention him as the guy you want to target. But the problem is Cortland Sutton, I don't even know the name of his quarterback. That's how obscure the quarterback for the Broncos is. Like, I don't actually know who the quarterback for the Broncos is. I don't know. If you like legit, I don't know who it is. Who's the quarterback for the Broncos for real? Like,
it's one of the Allens, I think.
Yeah, is it another?
Brandon? Is it a Brandon Allen?
Yeah. Brandon Allen. Like, who is that? Who is that? I don't even know who that is. So Cortland Sutton, I can't trust him even in a great matchup. But we get to the 6K to 5K range, and there's a lot of interest here for me. So let's talk about this range. And John, I'll start with you. Below Sutton, right? DJ Moore, very interesting. 10 targets every single week. We all love Kyle Allen already. Will Fuller coming back. Jamison Crowder, meh. Christian Kirk, eh. Taylor McLaurin, eh. Ridley, Williams, Samuel, Boyd. So there's some interest down here. Give me your thoughts on this group.
I think the Carolina guys are the guys that are going to be excited, and that kind of goes hand in hand with liking Kyle Allen, right? So now it's a question of, do you take two of them? And I think MME, you're going to probably want to do maybe a couple of them just as a to be a little unique in those. You'll be one of the few lineups that have that, but definitely want to split these guys up a little bit with Allen. So I like the Carolina wide receivers here. Terrell Williams down there at 5,400. That's a pretty good matchup with Cincinnati. So yeah, there's definitely some we talked about Ridley. You've got Hollywood Brown against Houston. If he plays, he's going to be playing. Or he didn't practice today, though, huh?
This fucking guy with his always injured thing, like nothing pisses me off more than when a team comes off the bye and the guy is still hurt. Like, dude, you had a week, but he's still questionable. Like, you had a fucking week. You need more? What the hell? Sorry, that's just pissed me off. Yeah, we talked about Hollywood Brown. It's almost like you almost have to only stack him with Jackson, because I feel like if Hollywood Brown is going off, Jackson is going off like crazy. Jackson is good for like 20 points with no wide receivers doing anything,
or potentially with Watson as well.
Yeah, so basically they're good for that regardless. So like when you start to see these guys going off, yeah, that's just crazy. So, Burns, what do you think of the game theory to the fact that everybody's going to be on DJ Moore, and I think Curtis Samuel's going to be really super low owned? So, like, if you're entering your Millie Maker lineup and you know, hey, I've got Kyle Allen or I'm doing this lineup and I know I want one of these two guys. Do you think about that? Because DJ Moore's been a little bit better, right? He's just been a little better. He gets a few more targets. He's a little higher floor. Curtis Samuel has more air yards, right? And he's been more of the deep play guy. He's kind of like the rich man's Robbie Anderson compared to and I'm saying rich man's because these guys are better than them, and the rich man's Jamison Crowder in terms of the DJ Moore role, if we want to kind of look at like how the Jets run their wide receiver corp, or something like that. So do you default to the cheaper guy, lower owned with more air yardage, probably a little more upside, but hasn't shown it yet? Or you're like, no, fuck that. I'll take my 11 targets, and I don't think the ownership on DJ Moore is high enough that I need to worry about it.
Well, it ultimately depends week to week how I'm building the lineups. But if it comes to where Samuel with the higher air yards and everything like that. What is he? He's 600 less than Moore this week. It really just depends on how he fits it within the build. If my builds are going to lean me more towards where I can have more for DJ Moore, I'll go that route. But in all honesty, like Samuel, he's probably made more of my lineups this year than Moore because of
cheaper.
The savings.
He's been cheaper all season.
Yeah. So he makes more of my lineups than Moore does because of it. Like I think last week I had Moore at 20%, but I had Samuel at 25%. So it was like, but
his price has come up. But these two guys have been the biggest values, like according to the optimizer, for multiple weeks in a row. Like, he was just, especially after this 11 target week, and he only put up 8 points. He finally had the target spike. But of course that was San Francisco. But like Tampa game, he does well. But even in that crazy game, man, only 6 targets. I don't know. It's tricky. Kyle, who do you like in this middling range here? One of the other guys I'm like sniffing around here is Sanu. Tyler Boyd is interesting. Tyrell Williams, but Sanu stands out, coming off of 14 targets, 10 receptions. I mean, I've never been a Sanu guy, but maybe this new Sanu with the Patriots is somebody to pay attention to. The new Sanu is someone to pay attention to.
Same. Yeah, I've never been a Sanu guy, but I like targeting this Philly D this year. He came off 14 targets last week, only had 81 yards and just 1 touchdown, so I don't think people are going to be all over him, and he's still a low price. So I like Sanu a decent amount. I think he's king of the beach playable if you wanted to go that route. But the only other king of the beach playable one I would say is your DJ Moore, and then the other guys would be more tournament guys for me. I don't think I would want to trust Samuel in a cash game or something as important as your king of the beach, but I do like him in a Millie Maker a decent amount because it only takes 1 catch for him to go off for just enough to get his salary paid off with 1 catch anyways. And if he gets 2 of those, he breaks the slate. So I just like everything about Carolina this week. So I'm gonna have all of them. But I think Moore and Sanu are both cash game playable. And you already mentioned Ridley as well. I think he's kind of in that mix as well.
I think Ridley's almost cash playable. Like I'm really not sure, but I think he is. My initial build for the King of the I threw the guys in there. My initial King of the Beach build did have these three guys in it, but then I floated the idea of going down to Gage with the Sanu spot and saving that money and getting Dalvin Cook in there. So like you can save some money here, and we'll talk about the bottom tier, but that was my initial look, was Sanu, Samuel, and DJ Moore as the trio, because they're just high target volume guys. They've been that way, or at least they were last week, and that's all I know in the last few weeks. So all guys getting 10 plus targets almost every week, and that's what I'm looking for. And with Gage, Samuel or Gage, this is the supreme value this week. So I thought that would be a good start. But let's go down to the next tier at wide receiver, and it's the cheapies, right? So let's talk about the cheapie tier here. Okay, and you're already seeing a couple of the guys that I love on screen. I'll take them off again. But under 5K on DraftKings, I'm going to go through these names here, and I'll say a lot of negatives here. Robbie Anderson, I mean, super volatile, GPP only. Yes, he's like a Curtis, like a poor man's Curtis Samuel. Eventually, he's going to have that big game, but I'm not waiting for it. Alshon Jeffrey, I don't play players against New England. No, thank you. Cole Beasley.
Your boy.
Red hair, tattered hand-me-down robes, pasty pale complexion. Must be a Beasley. I always like Beasley. Devontae Parker, no. Kenny Stills, meh. One of the guys I'm interested in is actually D.D. Westbrook. I think that if anybody's going to benefit from the style of play that Nick Foles, and this is probably a tournament play because he did have a one target, no reception game recently, and that fucked me up in the head. But before that, this guy was the DJ Moore of the 4 to 5K range. Like, he's been 9, 6, 11, 8, not 1, but 9, 6, 11, 8, and 1. A lot of targets most weeks. Now he's got Nick Foles, a guy who might want to check down or hit the crossing pattern out of the slot a little bit more than Gardner Minshew was apt to. So, Burns, if I told you that D.D. Westbrook will be less than 5% owned inside a dome, because everybody has the same thought, I don't know about the Foles, he's coming back, I'm worried about it. Would you think that that's a good play in cash? And can I put him in my King of the Beach lineup and win tickets to Miami based on this play?
King of the Beach? Maybe. But he is highly valuable in the Millie Maker, though, for me, because of the ownership and that he can blow it up at any time. We've seen Foles have a chemistry with over the middle slot receivers. So it's a good play if he is a good play on this slate. I just don't know if I can actually play him in the Millie lineup because the viability or the variance within him. I want those targets, and I want high targets in those wide receivers in that high dollar contest.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one.
Well, if you go with prior to the season, there was a lot of chatter that Foles and Westbrook were kind of building up a nice rapport. So I definitely think it's a good GPP play. I'll have a decent amount of shares of DD. I like it more than I like Chark. I like DD here, especially with the price.
I definitely like paying. I definitely like paying down way more than paying up for Chark in a scary spot. Look what he did in week 1. I mean, this was when Foles was still there.
He wasn't there for long.
No, but I mean, maybe that's where those 6 passes came from. And then Minshew comes in, he starts throwing it to Chark. It's like Didi's like, hey man, what the fuck? Then Minshew's like, hey, you were hanging out with Foles all winter, all summer. I'm hanging out with Chark over here, going with my boy. I don't know. But I like D.D. Westbrook here. I like that he's healthy. Again, that he doesn't have that Q tag. I hate the fucking Q tag. It tortures my soul. All right. So in this range, who did I go to last? This is what I'm saying. 4 people. Burns, in this range, who do you like besides D.D. Westbrook? And I'm leaving Deebo Samuel. I'm going to talk about Deebo Samuel. So if his name is not Deebo Samuel, are there any other potential high dollar King of the Beach players in this grouping that we can look at and feel confident with that at the very least we're not going to get a complete dud out of them?
In that 4K range?
Yeah, 4 to 5K.
I would say one that probably no one's going to own in the King of the Beach. It'll be 0.1%. It's probably Danny Amendola. Outside of him, probably not much. Maybe Hunter Renfrow in a good matchup against Cincinnati. But he's going to be more owned than Amendola. But in that same game, if you went up a little bit to the 5,200, I could see Tyler Boyd in that game as well.
Tyler Boyd does hold some interest. If it wasn't Ryan Finley throwing to him, I'd be so much more interested in him this week. Although, Finley, hit him up a bunch of times and the matchup is so good. How about you, Kyle? You got anybody in this range that you're looking at? Are you on board with, Boyd, some of these guys that we've talked about?
Yeah, I'd say, I don't know. I've been warming up to Boyd, I would say, but that's more with my Oakland interest. He'd be the running back kind of guy. Other than Oakland games, I don't think I would be able to get to Boyd. Yeah, I kind of do like Westbrook, I guess. You guys talked me into that. He'll make my short list now. I would say the only other guy, though, is Devontae Parker, and that I was more sold from the DS on him. But I don't think he's going to put up a dud. He had 10 targets against this Buffalo team 4 weeks ago. I think he had 10 targets last week as well. So Parker, I think at 4,700 is in play. I don't love it, though. But I don't think he would put up a dud, and I could see him at least putting up 2X for you.
You know who I like in this range?
Deebo. He tried to win me a King of the Beach this weekend, and the kicker screwed me over.
I want to see it again. Hold on. That's my boy, punk. Been waiting to do that all year till the technology came together, and plus Deebo is actually playable. Like, you don't understand. Before the season started, I was thinking of this. I was like, this Deebo guy, he's got to be a thing. He's got to be a thing. So is Deebo a thing? Here's the deal. Who the fuck else is Jimmy Garoppolo going to throw to in this matchup? Arizona is not so terrible against the run that you could just smash them with Tevin Coleman, right? Breida's going to be out. So he's a lot of what they throw to at wide receiver. It looks like Manny Sanders is not going to play. I mean, he hasn't practiced. It's Thursday as of now. That brings Deebo into smash mode. Now, I don't know where the fuck Deebo is in our projection system right now. It doesn't know that he's going to be out, but he should be the top points per dollar value, maybe between him and Gage on this entire slate. John, is there any argument against this play in cash? Like, is this the cash play of the week? Deebo Samuel, 4K, allows you to pay for some running back action, coming off 11 targets. What? No Kittle. He's gone. He's out. Probably no Manny Sanders. Out. I don't know the other Kendrick Bourne. There's no one else on this team to throw to. It's no one else. This is it.
I mean, I could give you the argument against it, which is no. I think. Well, I'm going to give you from just the game script argument where, San Fran gets back on track here, runs the ball, gets up big, and they just continue to run it because, they really don't want to throw the ball over the lot. That's not what they're looking to do. The San Fran defense. Now, the first time they played 2 weeks ago on that Thursday night game, we were doing this, but They gave up quite a few points to Arizona, whatever I think it was a 3-point game in the mid-20s. So, if this game goes a little bit more to plan, they're a double-digit favorite. They get the lead. They really don't want to throw the ball all that much with Jimmy G, and he's a little bit erratic. So that's my argument. It's going to be, or my argument against. I'll give you the counter is just that they just don't. It's one of those games where they don't have a lot of throws. They wind up running the ball. They get more rushes in this game than they do passes. So I kind of like, if you're going to go cheap, and we've talked about Gage. I mean, I think Gage is a better option for cash game than Samuel is.
Interesting. You legit think Gage is the better option? Like
I really do,
because they're going to be throwing more and they're missing just as many pieces.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I mean, I could be totally off base, but I mean, and in GPPs, I love Samuel here because because then obviously I could be 100% wrong, and they just throw the ball here, and Arizona finds a way to once again score some points against San Francisco. But I don't know if I would trust it in a cash situation.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I do think he stands out in all formats, but I don't know. You're right. There is definitely that possibility that I do not expect Arizona. I do not expect them to have the kind of success that they had in the last game. I think they took them by surprise. It was Thursday night. You know what happens when you're playing a bad team and your defense is so you're like, all right. We didn't really practice this week.
I heard they literally didn't practice. Like they didn't. What did I hear? Something like that, where they didn't. Something. I don't want to say they took the game lightly, but I did hear something that week where they didn't do any serious practicing. I forget what it was, but it was something, some sort of built-in excuse they had with the short week.
A lot of times, a lot of these teams are doing that, where they're just doing walkthroughs on the short weeks, and that's part of why the Thursday night games. And I don't know what's going on right now with the game. We're doing this, but that's why the Thursday night games in general have been just a little wonky with the way they play out. These teams don't really want to put too much into it during the week because they're still just recovering. How about you, Adam? Burns, do you think that Debo or Gage for the pay down cash option, or both in your high dollar lineup? And I'll throw it to you afterwards.
Tossing them two around. Okay. I've been tossing those two around with how I want to attack this high dollar slate with either Samuel or Gage.
Both. I just want to keep throwing that out there.
This one is tricky because, I mean, both of them are viable, but I don't know if I want them in the same lineup. I'm kind of with John on this one, with Samuel. I do kind of like him more for GPP. I'm kind of leaning more and more towards the week as it goes on. But Gage is becoming more and more of an interest for me because of his price and how it allows me to possibly get to Michael Thomas and Christian McCaffrey within the same lineup. And, getting those two in the same lineup, and if they could go off for 80 points, my gosh, I'm already one step ahead of the game, and pushing that top 75 in that King of the Beach qualifier.
You only got to get to top 75, right? Or in a cash game, you only have to get in the money. Now check this out, what I'm doing on screen. Kyle, can you see what is going on here on the screen?
Yeah, I see you building my cash lineup. Let's go ahead and get that off the screen.
Is this your cash line? Did I discover your cash lineup just now? So you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to get what's his name? All of the top running backs into the lineup together and see who I can afford at tight end. If I go down a little bit here, I mean, the negative is you've got to kind of turn it up on defense. I can't play either of these. So, only the Cardinals defense. I don't hate the Cardinals defense, but we'll get to that. But I just wanted to show you it is possible to go McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, and Josh Jacobs together. And, it could work. Don't look great, but it could work. And you could even get in, a Sidney or a Tyler Boyd in there and really kind of go heavy target volume, something like that. We can do some other things. I could probably get all the way up to I bet I can get all the way up to.
Benny, what's his name? Brian Hill. He's going to be a popular one there too.
Oh yeah, Hill's the other guy. So yeah, Hill's the other guy. But we'll get to the running back. But
Debo would be 50% owned in your King of the Beach.
Hill.
No, Debo.
Yeah, I think Debo. I think he's going to be high. I have to watch the ownership projections.
Yeah, and then same with Gage. I think I'm on your team both side. I like getting both of them in there. That helps you pay up for your C-Mac and your Thomas if you want to. So I'm all about getting both of them, and I will be high on both of them this week. I think if I was in King of the Beach, I would have both of them in there. So that's the route I'm going to take. They're two of my favorite receivers for value. And Debo, I think he has a nice high ceiling this week as well. So he might be my highest owned wide receiver on the week.
That's my bike punk, man. I like it. There's no other real pay downs that I'm excited by. I mentioned
you guys
one.
are talking me more and more into it.
You see, he's coming around. By the time you watch the Players Club, you're going to be like, I'm all in on that motherfucker. And you'll be cursing too, because there's so much of that goes on the Players Club that you come out of it. You're like, your kids walk in the room. You're like, what the fuck do you want? Wait, sorry. I was just listening to the geek. Shut him up. All right, let's go over to the running back position.
They already told me that anyway. So.
Oh, okay, there we go. But note what I have on the screen here is almost a lineup with all of our chalk and Michael Thomas in there, but it didn't quite make it. So sorry, people who are watching this and trying to copy this lineup. You need to squeeze another $100 out of it to make it work. Unfortunately, but we almost got there. All right, let's look at the running back position. Let's start at the top. Kyle, I'll start with you this time. Christian McCaffrey in a dream matchup against the we can't stop pass catching running backs, Atlanta Falcons. Although they've been fine actually against the running back position this season, but the traditional bad versus running backs Falcons. Have they played this season yet? No, we have no example to go off of. McCaffrey had that one bad game. Every other game, he's between pretty much 30 to 45 fantasy points. Is there any excuse not to play him here? Too expensive? What do you say?
No, I don't see any excuse not to play. I mean, I think I might be all in with my 3 entry maxes on him. If not all in, I'll definitely have him in 2 of my 3, I would say. I think he's a lock in cash games. And yeah, I mean, I'm all over this game, so he'll be in most of my freaking tournaments too. I'm all about C-Mac this week, and we have the value that we've already talked about to be able to pay up for him. So I don't see why not going to him. And I might not end up on any Elliott this week just because I want more C-Mac, and he's only 1,500 more compared to what Elliott's been doing this year. I haven't been impressed from what I've seen. It's a great matchup for him. He's on the road, though. Don't love that. But we got C-Mac as a home favorite in the nut matchup in the game that I love stacking up. So, yeah, I'm all about it. I'll be close to all in.
Tough to not play him. Now, for my 2 more tournament-minded people, I got to figure out how to stop those. For my 2 more tournament-minded people, John and Burns. So I think a lot of people are going to be on Christian McCaffrey, although his ownership has not been that high since he hit this 10K range. But, the alternatives are Zeke and Dalvin Cook in terms of pay up options, right? So where do you go? Where do you go with this? And I'll start with you, John. Like, where do you go with this trio here? I really like Dalvin Cook because he's Dalvin Cook and he fucking crushes every week also. But, the one time I loaded up on McCaffrey and Cook together, I got burned. And now I have this horrible post-traumatic stress disorder from 2 weeks ago when Cook had his dud game. And, I had done everything I could to squeeze him in my lineup. Now it's like I have cognitive bias. How do I get past my cognitive bias, John? Let's just talk psychologically. How do I get past that? Because I know that you don't have that shit. You're like a fucking gambler. You wipe it out of your head. And me, I sit and I commiserate about Dalvin Cook against KC. Like, what do you do to get over it?
Well, there's a reason the greatest comics of all time, or some of them, were Jewish, right? Because they've got that built-in anxiety and the constant, so
it's all the time with me.
Yeah. It's the Curb Your Enthusiasm right?
I'm basically Larry David,
Yeah.
but younger and slightly handsomer.
But yeah, no, you gotta kind of wipe that stuff out. I mean, you got to leave that to the average players out there to have that bad taste. You want to know who I go to find out what the average Joe is thinking? My mom. My mom actually plays this.
I thought
No.
You.
My mom loves this stuff. Like my mom plays FanDuel. She plays like I gave her a season-long team, one of my season-long teams that she runs with. But she is the ultimate, like she knows just enough to get herself in trouble, and she's the ultimate like player who will make just crazy moves because something happened last week, or like, you know, they screwed her last week, or whatever the case is. It's a Thursday night game. I'm not playing anyone in my Thursday night game. She sat everybody in the Minnesota Rams game last year, and she had like 3 wide receivers in that game. And I go, what are you doing? You can't sit. Oh, I hate Thursday night games. Like, she's the one who makes all those mistakes, but she loves it. But anyway, yeah, I like Dalvin Cook. I mean, Dalvin Cook's my guy here. Out of that trio.
So you like Dalvin Cook even more than Christian McCaffrey?
I do, because I think you're really close to he can outscore him at 1,600 less, right? So I don't think the projections are all that far off between the two. And that's a big difference in price. So I mean, I'm going to have way more Cook. I think the market's going to have more Cook as well, quite honestly. So I think if you're gonna go up on if you're going to kind of force in a little bit more McCaffrey, you might be able to get away with being above the market if you get up, if you push it a little bit. And obviously, he's been giving you just week in, week out these monster numbers. But it could be the case where he's got to get you 40 this week, which is not out of the question. But Dalvin Cook at 35 might be even better. He might get you 35 points this week and be better. I just like Dalvin Cook over Zeke. I would put Zeke in third place here, and he's the second in price. So that's kind of how I'm playing those three.
Inexplicable that they jacked up the Zeke salary, but Burns, I loaded up the current projections as of right now. This will change for ownerships and actual projections, but the ownership projections. So you can't even Zeke Elliott under 10%. I'm shocked. What the fuck is this? This number can't be right. 10% Brian Hill. What the fuck is that? Right. But it is showing a little bit more ownership for Dalvin Cook than Christian McCaffrey. So, and this is just ridiculous. I don't know what the fuck that.
What do we think Hill's ownership is going to be in like the Millie? I think Burns is the one I want to ask that to.
I 5 to within that range easily. The guy I'm kind of interested in the Millie, he didn't have a very good game in that San Francisco game versus Arizona, but the week prior he blew up, is Tevin Coleman. I'm interested in him this week. I think he could be a very good play. I'm not going to play him in the King of the Beach, but he will make my Millie Maker lineups. I do like him a lot this week.
I wonder if Tevin Coleman is the sharp move off of Josh Jacobs.
That's kind of where I'm thinking with it. I think a lot of ownership is going to be on Jacobs and Hill in the Millie.
Is 15% going to be because I was looking at it right now, I had about 15% Coleman in my mind, and about the same on Jacobs.
I think Jacobs will be 25+% owned.
Agreed.
And then where's Coleman?
Coleman will probably be like 9 to 12 range.
Yeah, I'm on that. I'm on that too. I see Coleman as more of a 10%er, whereas Josh Jacobs is going to be the chalk. Like he's got you get into cash games, Jacobs will be like 60% or 50% owned, for sure. So I like that pivot, Burns. What about these top guys? Burns, what about these top guys?
The top guys, I do like the Dalvin Cook CMC together. I like Dalvin Cook.
No, we lost him. Technology, man, it's crazy. All right, let's.
I think this is a good week to pay up, though. I think you have to pay up for 2 running backs this week. I would say from Jacobs up, I want 2 of those guys in every lineup I hand build. And then if you want to go down, I mean, Coleman could definitely make that list. If is Breed out? Do we have the news on that? If he's out, I think he makes that list as well. And then I drop mostly down to McKissick and Hill for the value. So I think that's the build that most people are going to have to go to this week. And that's my favorite build of the week as well.
Yeah, I just think that's how it's going to go. There are some names, though, that stand out as tournament pivots. I would leave Zeke Elliott in that sort of let me get 5 to 10% exposure in GPPs just in case everybody else does, and he has this great game, which he hasn't been doing, but in the spectacular matchup. But beyond that, man, I don't want to get too crazy with a 9K Zeke who he's just doing this, 17, 18, 7, 29, but that's the ceiling. And then back down to 17s. He's way too much of these 17s and 20s for me. Where you have a McCaffrey and a Cook who are really at 30 all the time. And you could see it, even if I know it's a stupid measure, but if you look at these numbers, I mean, they bear it out. Now, another guy who I think is a little too expensive is Fournette. He's clearly allergic to touchdowns. They had so many chances for this guy to score. So many red zone, so many goal line shots. He just doesn't do it. He's going to have a game where he scores 3 touchdowns at some point. So, what's that?
I want to be on it. I'm not committed at this point.
I mean, but he hasn't been burning you. He's just like, all right, I've been playing him too. I don't feel like he owes me one. He's been doing fine without the touchdowns. That's why we keep playing him. He keeps getting you 20 points.
He's overpriced. I kind of think that's the right price for him with the work he's been getting. And we should see the touchdowns coming. There's no way he's going to finish with just 1 touchdown on the season. So I think that's going to pick up throughout the rest of the year, and I'm not afraid to target against the Colts rushing defense. He's definitely my favorite Jaguar of the week. I think he's cash playable as well. He'll be a top 3 running back for me this week, actually, 3 or 4.
That's surprising because definitely not the case for me here, that I'm thinking of this guy as some sort of a play that I want to have a lot. How about you, John? What do you say about Leonard Fournette here?
I mean, I like Fournette, but not nearly as much as Kyle does here. In GPPs, I mean, I'm going to have him. I'll have less Fournette than I will Coleman. I'm going to have more Colemans than I will Fournette in this situation. The thing you like about Fournette is he's getting more targets this year, and I think that's kind of helping keep his numbers pretty good. So, if any one of these games he popped for 2 touchdowns, it would just change. It would just change everything. But I mean, that game is coming, and I think he'll get some yardage in this game. I'm just, I don't know. If I'm putting him in 10%, I don't know where that's going to put me against the market. So I'm not 100% sure, but I kind of feel like that's the number I want to be on him.
Yeah, I don't mind. I think you'll be pretty close to the market. I just think MMEers will always want to get like 10% of just about like everyone. You know what I mean? Now, Burns, I have a crazy Millie Maker play for you. Comes from my hometown of New York. Le'Veon Bell hasn't done shit. But, he gets all the touches for the Jets for the most part. Now they've got the Redskins coming to town. The Jets are probably favored in this game. John, favored Jets? Let me get I don't have the odds open in front of me.
No, Jets are getting 2 points, 2.5 points now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a sad day, and it's a low total. It's I believe lowest total on the board, 30.5.
They're fucking underdogs to the Redskins with Dwayne Haskins at the quarterback. What?
Yeah, I mean, what they're telling.
Possible?
And it's actually the exact line I have on my numbers. I have this game at 2.5 as well. So
now you understand why I became a fantasy football fanatic 20 years ago. It's because I loved football and the fucking Jets always suck. And so for me to enjoy watching the sport that I love, I needed a rooting interest outside of my shitty ass home team. Now, Burns, what about now that we know they're underdogs? It doesn't make me as happy. But last week you played the Jets game to perfection by loading up on Daniel Jones in a Millie Maker winning move that almost got you there. Didn't get there, but almost.
Yeah.
What about Le'Veon Bell as a pivot off of, or do I need to pivot? Why am I trying to pivot off Josh Jacobs or anyway? What the fuck is wrong with me? Am I stupid? Should I not be pivoting off this dude?
In the Millie, I think you can. King of the Beach, no, I think Jacobs is a good. He's going to be there. I'm not going to be on Le'Veon Bell in my high dollar lineups this week, but I will have him in the Millie. I'll have him at 10% owned in the Millie.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And the weird thing about this week, there's some other running backs. So you mentioned Tevin Coleman. I definitely, listen, if Matt Breida is out, that's where I'm interested. Because Raheem Mostert doesn't get a lot of passing game work. Mostert, they'll bring in, he'll get half the touches. Don't get me wrong. Like, don't expect Tevin Coleman to come out here and get 25 touches. I don't think that's happening. I wish, if I thought it was, oh my God, I'd be all in. But I don't think that's happening.
One thing with the San Fran running, I believe they're averaging like one less yard per rush without Kittle in the lineup. So just something to pay attention
to. Interesting. They haven't been as good. I mean, the last few weeks, they've just not been producing as much just offense overall via the run. I think there's a little bit of circumstance involved. Games were a lot closer. Like, you had these 2 close games, and all of a sudden the running game went down. But when they're smashing people, that's when they were getting all the volume. So we'll see what happens this week, but I like the play. I think Devin Singletary is playable. Again, another guy with maybe a floor a little too low for the salary. But, I mean, could you ask for a better matchup? Miami. It's Miami. They're terrible. So, I mean, Devin Singletary, no one's want to play him after last week, though. But, he's playable. And, I mean, moving down the list, I don't know if you guys like anybody down here. How about Ron Jones Jr., Kyle? Are you comfortable playing a running back against what is a really good Saints defense, considering this guy got 8 targets, 8 receptions? Like, he looked really good last week.
Yeah, I heard something that his amount of reception was more than he had in college and high school combined. So I don't know if we're going to be able to see that keep going. And he only saw 45% of the snaps as well last week. So I don't know if I want him or not, but I'm not against it. I think he'll be in my player pool. I think there's maybe 8, 9 running backs this week that I'll even have in my player pool. And I think he would be in that 8-9 range.
I don't mind it. All right, so let's move down the list. We really talked about Brian Hill. I don't need to bring him back up. He's in a great spot. Love Brian Hill here. 20 carries last week. There's no one else on the Falcons to take the carries. Carolina can't stop the run. Burns. KOTB. Lock.
Pretty close. Yeah.
What a minute.
He opens up so much more if you have Dalvin Cook and CMC together, in terms of a wide receiving core or even at the tight end. By putting him in there, let's see what we can do with him at that spot over like Jacobs. We can get up to Dwayne Waller from there. So
gets you a better, potentially a better tight end. Could get you a better defense. Could get you a little bit something better going at the quarterback position. So, anytime you could save money and get a volume running back, there's absolutely, and I know like there are going to be projection systems that are going to just smash Brian Hill into every single lineup this week because of the potential for 20 touches. Plus, in this game, there's no doubt that he is a sharp cash play. I don't know about the ceiling because we talked about this on the Vegas Lines pod. Atlanta hasn't been like super productive to the running back position this year, but they haven't been terrible, right? A little bit of that has been a split carry situation. A little bit of that is just, I think Devontae Freeman just fucking sucks. Like I'm of the mind that maybe Freeman's just not that good. But if you start to put a lineup together and you start getting this grouping, especially the most common, I think, will be Hill, Jacobs, McCaffrey, and you throw Gage in there, all of a sudden we could start to talk about potentially, and Debo, we could start to talk about potentially affording Yeah, here we go. You can start talking about potentially affording, a Michael Thomas in your lineup as well. So it's not out of the question that you could do something like this here. You might have to.
The builds that you've been doing is what you're going to see a lot of in cash this week.
Is that because people are watching this breakdown?
Yeah, everyone's watching this. They're going to copy them all, see which one they like more. But no, this is what I've been building all week long. It's just what you've been doing. It's the same exact guys you're throwing in. It just makes the most sense. And I think you're going to see a ton of this in King of the Beach. This is what you're going to be competing against. It's all three of these lineups that you've been making.
These motherfuckers better not be watching my shit, man. I only listen. I root for Burns. I will sacrifice my position if Burns couldn't get it, because he's a good guy. But outside of that, fuck everybody. I only want it for me. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I don't give a shit about anybody else, man. Unless you're in my crew, you're my enemy. That's how I treat this. Well, only my crew is watching this, so I don't care. All right. Let's talk about tight ends real quick. Not a whole lot to talk about at the tight end position this week. Kittle out. Andrews, very expensive. Hooper out. Waller. Ertz against New England. And then we've got Cook and Olsen. There's not a whole lot going on here. John, what am I doing at tight end? Like, can I pay up Andrews?
Well,
with the volume, man.
For your if you're King of the Beach, I mean, this is actually where you're going to have to probably outscore somebody. If a lot of people are going to be taking similar type of lineups, the tight end might be the spot where you're going to have to really concentrate. So where you might be sitting here and going, oh man, I don't really like a lot here at tight end. You might be digging deep here at tight end, trying to find some gold that's going to put you over the top of some of these other guys there. And you're going to need a cheap wide receiver and a cheap defense. So yeah, I mean, this could be a really important pick for you in cash games. As far as the GPPs, I mean, Waller's obviously looks like the best guy out there this week. Has been quite a bit, and especially now with no Kittle, no Hooper, Andrews. I don't know. I don't know if I want to pay up for Andrews here when I could pay $600 less for Waller. So yeah, I mean, Olsen's another guy though that.
I think Olsen's going to be very popular.
Yeah, 3,900. I mean, that's I like that there against Atlanta. Kind of throw out last week how good they looked defensively, and that could be, if you're off of the Samuel Moore, you could be stacking Allen here with Olsen and getting a real cheap stack in there.
I mean, it's not outside of the realm. I think that Olsen will be the most popular, and it's weird because he just had a good game, but he's been basically shit almost every week, for the last 5 or 6 weeks up until now. And he had this one good week, and I do think he's going to be super chalk.
We liked him last week, and he had a couple of good weeks. Look who he had the good weeks against early. I mean, it was Tampa, terrible, right? Terrible against the pass. Arizona, terrible against the tight ends. We know that. Green Bay, we liked him in that game last week. So I mean, in soft matchups, he has done well, and this is a pretty soft matchup. So I wouldn't hesitate to throw Olsen in a lineup here.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. Like I said, I think he'll be one of the higher owned. What do you think about Jared Cook? He's the Saints going to be throwing a lot. It's the perfect matchup against Tampa. Cook has had a bunch of good games very quietly. Even the 3-target game, he did pretty well. And of course, he's got, the big game last week, 10 targets against Atlanta. He's getting you 14 points. I mean, 4,400 is a little spendy for me for what he's been doing, but he certainly has a little bit of blow up potential. And, he's playable.
What I'm saying? Yeah, definitely an MME playable guy. I mean, I think you're going to want to do MME because we were talking about all these other plays, is you're going to be spreading it out with your third wide receiver and your tight end. You're going to want to be a little bit more diverse. Usually, we kind of we like maybe a handful of tight ends here. I think you're going to have to kind of spread it out in GPPs and look for some cheap options if you want to get these expensive guys in there. So, not that Cook's cheap here, but there's other cheap. There's cheaper guys, but I'm not in love with Cook. The thing with New Orleans is it's like Thomas, and then you never you just never know who Breeze is going to be going to. And we also talked about how Breeze. I know everyone is going to love Breeze here this week, and it's definitely a favorable matchup. But the problem is outside of Thomas, you just never know who else on that team is going to go off as from a pass catching standpoint. So, and Cook hasn't been what he was with Oakland last year. So I'll have him, just not going to be really high on him. He's going to be one of my lower owned tight ends.
Man, I wish they hadn't jacked up that salary on him. I'd be much more interested in a Cook at 3,600 than I am at 4,400. Like the salary just squeezes. I feel like he should be coming in under Greg Olsen price point, not over. But I think they jacked him up for the matchup. Everybody's jacked up in that fucking matchup. Like what? DraftKings figured out that it's good to play guys against Tampa. Like pass catchers against Tampa is good. How about you, Kyle? Do you like any of these cheap tight ends? I mean, who can I put in my high dollar lineup? Is Hawkinson viable here? I mean, 6 targets from Driscoll last week. Gesicki, I don't want any of that. But Ross Dwelly, replacing. He's like a turd for the primetime game, but I don't know if I want to play him on a main slate kind of guy. Dwelly, where my turds at? That's a turd, man. What are you doing on the main slate? And even Tyler Eifert is coming off of a lot of targets last week. Can I just pay down and get Tyler Eifert and
you better not have Eifert in the King of the Beach lineup. Yeah, I'd be pissed if I lose to like Tyler Eifert lineups in cash. I'd be pretty upset about that. No, he's not going to make my list at all. If I was making 150, he wouldn't be in it. So my favorite pay downs, you've already mentioned Cook, Olsen. I like them a good bit. And then after them, I would say it is Ebron and Howard. I like them both at 3,600, a good amount. And then the only other 2 cheap guys, I don't hate Hawkinson, but it's tough to get there. I would say I like Fant and Ryan Griffin a little bit as well as cheap guys, but I don't think I could trust them in King of the Beach. I would say for me, it would be Cook, Olsen, Howard, Ebron would be the only 4 cheapos I'd be looking at for cash.
I didn't even realize that Ebron had 12 targets last week. So I want to know what the fuck is going on.
5 in the red zone.
Yeah, that is unbelievable. Was Brissett
I heard he went to the coach and said he wanted more targets. So like he was the squeaky wheel. I didn't even hear about it, but apparently he was a squeaky wheel and he got what he asked for. 12 targets, 5 of them in the red zone. And now 3,600. It's pretty interesting. Although Howard at the same price saw 84 of 85 snaps last week. Finally started seeing some action, got in the end zone. I think those 2 being the same price is real interesting, just figuring out who you would rather go to between the 2 of them.
I don't mind either. You know what's fucked up, Burns? I think the winner of the Millie Maker is going to have to pick. Like, John, I think you're right. I think the winner of the Millie Maker, it's all going to be very similar. And then the winner is going to have to pick the right of this little group. Like I said, you saw that lineup I had up before. I needed 100 more to make it work. Well, that was because I had Greg Olsen in there. But if you drop down to Ebron / Howard, all of a sudden that whole thing fits together. Ebron, 12 targets. What the hell? Now, do we think that was a result of T.Y. Hilton being out and just like them not having many other pass catchers to throw to? It's like Zach Pascal, Carlos Rogers, or Doyle and Ebron. I don't even know who the other guy is. You're the local guy in Indiana, man.
Yeah, I think so. And then I can see a lot of 2 tight end lineups. So I think he's safe. He'll get his targets. He'll definitely be in pretty much every snap that's in the red zone. And he's going to be one of the go-to guys in the red zone. So I like him a good amount. I think he's cash game viable at $3,600. He's probably my favorite Colt of the week, actually.
It's really interesting because, Jacksonville also has pretty good corners. They don't have Jalen Ramsey anymore, but they have pretty good corners, and they are going to funnel a little bit more to the tight end position. So you've got me interested in this guy. Burns, you paying attention, man? Because Eric Ebron got 12 targets last week, and I'm just finding out right now.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Did you know?
Yep, I knew it.
Oh, now he's not even happy that we're broadcasting it to the way you have a look of disappointment, like fuck, that's who I was playing. Now I'm just reading your poker face, and I feel confident that you were gonna use Eric Ebron. Is that true?
Yeah, I've been toying with him. I like him a little bit this week.
Don't believe him when he says a little bit. It means he loves him.
Well, the play that I was on Friday, and it just came about like through my research Thursday and Friday, was Tyler Eifert, and I played him about 15% to 20%. He got the touchdown I was looking for. He had that matchup. He had a very nice matchup, and he went at it, and he did Tyler Eifert healthy things that I was anticipating he was going to do. This isn't. I don't know if I like him in this matchup as much as I liked him last week, but I like Waller a lot this week. I think he's going to be a really good play in this Cincy Oakland game. But I do like Ebron. But yeah, I'm with Kyle on this. I like Ebron a lot.
There we go. Cash viable?
I think so. Yeah, at that price, 3,600. Yeah.
All right, let's move over to defense. Final position. With defense, I'm going to start at the bottom, not at the top, because I think the bottom is more important on defense. And that's how I actually build lineups, right? I don't look at the most expensive defense and go, all right, let me start with the 49er. Like, no, I start with, hey, is it acceptable for me to roll the 1,500 salary Arizona Cardinals in a lineup who have had two decent games, not a good one against San Francisco, but two decent games in their recent past, right? So, John, I'll start with you here. I'm trying to afford good things in my lineup. I want to buy my kids presents with all of the monies that I win. But in order to do that, sometimes I want to pay for the cheapest defense, right? Cardinals all the way down 1,500, massively lower than anybody who I would even call viable. Like the first viable defense, I'm going to say that's actually usable is probably all the way up here, Saints, right? 2,900. So can I save 1,400 and risk a zero, but squeeze in some extra studliness? Or is it just stupid to take a zero, basically?
I don't think you're necessarily taking a zero here. So I think I think at 1,500 to fit in all those nice little shiny toys that you want to play with in the rest of your lineup, I think that's a viable option. I think they'll get a little bit of play because of that, because of people trying to shove in some of those high priced guys. So I'm going to have a decent amount of this of the Cardinals in GPP. I'll be over the market on them just because, you know, at that price, I'm always kind of looking for an excuse to use these cheapies. And yeah, I mean, I'll give you the old San Fran played 5 quarters of football on Monday night, and who knows? You know, Jimmy G is not averse to throwing a couple to the other team, and we saw that, and their wide receivers were, you know, kind of dropping balls last week too. So get a couple of balls hit off someone's shoulder pads, they take one into the house. You know, that 1,500 is a pretty nice price if they throw a touchdown on the board. Dante
Pettis can single-handedly deliver a ball through the hands, interception, return for a touchdown, you know, some goodness just right off of a Dante Pettis in that game if they throw to him. So, yeah, I like it. I think they have a shot at a couple of sacks. I'm not looking for much. Part of what I always try to say with this type of play, listen, I'm not looking for much. I'm looking for like 4. Like if you got me 4 fantasy, if you got me a couple sacks, I'm already pretty happy. Maybe a fumble recovery. You got me 4, 5, 6. That's all you can ask for if you're going to pay 1,500. And again, the next defense that even has a chance of scoring is a full 1,500. It's a big difference. Burns, your mindset in a single game contest with the defense, can you pay down all the way to the cheapest viable and just kind of accept a very low sky? I'll take a 2. Or do you think I'd much rather, move off of like a stud player to a mediocre player in the main lineup so that you can squeeze in a defense that has at least a slightly better shot, but not a lock to get you more than 0?
I think this week we almost have to go with that Arizona defense. I'm even liking Detroit this week in and around about the same range. But I think we might have to go that low because to get up to those stud running backs and maybe even the wide receiver at MT's range, we're going to have to within this KOTB cash lineup builds that we do. Millie Maker, you can move away from these and go into the mid-tier 2s and as well as into the 3s, and that'll make your build that much more different than anyone else's because a lot of people will be paying down for that 1,500 to 1,800 range.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't understand the Lions. Like, I don't like them at all. The Cowboys just never turn the football over. Like, I need turnovers, man. I mean, I guess it could happen, but that's what I'm saying. Like the Raiders have been really good too, like that, and Baltimore and the Viking. Like these teams are look at these numbers. Like these are the worst teams to take defenses against so far this season. Miami, but it's fucking Miami. They suck. So I don't want to pay $1,000 more than the Cardinals for Miami. So that's where I'm stuck. Kyle, cash game mindset, same deal. You're thinking probably Cardinals, or do you want to pay up and try to find a defense that has at least some? Like I was originally thinking the Jets would be interesting, or the Raiders, Vikings. I like there's a lot of 3K defenses that are good that I like. Patriots, Bills. I mean, there's a lot of pay up options that are interesting here. Do you think YOLO just fucking punt it in your cash game because we're trying to squeeze in some studly running backs here?
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to go with Cardinals. Or, like Burns said, I'm not against the Lions at home. If you need the extra 300 to get to somebody else you like, another Thomas or another running back, I'm all about that. But, yeah, it's going to be the Cardinals for me. And I could see me going Cardinals in all 3 of my 3-entry maxes this week just because I want to pay up in these spots, and I'm cool with being chalky in those lineups. The Millie Maker is where I would get away from that kind of stuff because you are going to see a good amount of ownership on all of these in tournaments as well, and they have a good amount of bust potential, especially these defenses like Cardinals defense. They could have negative points this week, so I'm totally fine with just fading them in the Millie Maker type deal. But for cash games, I think they're going to be one of the top owned defenses.
I like it. All right, so let's move up the list here, and let's assume we're not punting away our defense. And we mentioned a couple. I'm not down. I think to me the Lions are as bad of a punt, if not worse. As I think they're actually worse than the Cardinals in terms of a play. Bengals, can the Raiders implode? Sure, but if I'm paying up, I'll tell you where I'm getting to. One could have some interest in the Redskins. I wasn't interested in the Redskins until John, you told me that they're favored. What the fuck?
Well, that's what I'm looking at. I'm like, they're cheaper than the Jets in the lowest scoring or the lowest total game, and they're I didn't look at the team totals, but I would assume the Jets team total has got to be one of the lowest on the
I'm sure it's
on the board this week. So. So you're saving $300 off from the Jets down to the Redskins. So that's not a terrible option there at 2,800.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's terrible, the team total. Now, you've got a couple other interesting ones. Jets, I think, are interesting for me. The Jets defense hasn't played that bad around the line. They've gotten some turnovers. Obviously, their secondary is not good, but we're talking about Dwayne Haskins here. The guy's fucking terrible. So, I mean, he's looked bad, and he's a rookie. I always want defenses against rookie quarterbacks. I'd move up the list. The Raiders, against Cincinnati. Again, another rookie quarterback on the road this time. I'm just down to target rookie quarterbacks. Vikings might be the best play of them all. That other Allen guy, the third best Allen. You don't want to be the third best Allen at quarterback in the NFL. Like, that's not a good thing to be. I don't know. Vikings at home, they're a good defense. Seems like a smash spot. We've got the Patriots. Anytime the Patriots play, they're very, very good. They've been scoring like crazy. I don't think they're going to be owned at all. Now, Burns, do we pay up for the Patriots to win the Millie? These guys put up 20 points a week. No one's going to roster them.
What are they priced at? 3,500.
35. Yeah. No one's rostering them. No one's going to have them.
No one's rostering them. They'll be really low owned. They're on the road. I wanted to dig more into how they have been performing on the road as a defensive unit. But yeah, you're right. Nobody's going to own these guys.
I mean, you've made your bones in the Millie Maker just hitting the right defense like time and time again. That's been like the Burns special. Look at these fucking scores. This is basically the Patriots are Christian McCaffrey for cheap.
Yeah.
How do you not play?
It could be a very good play in the King of the Beach too.
Yeah, I'm like, they might be playable in King of the Beach.
Yeah,
as like better than a running back, for 3,500. Like, that's the spot where you want to pay up. So I think there's absolute, at least viability here. We said Arizona. I don't know that I want to do that, because if I can afford it, and I'm not sure that I can this week, but if I can afford it, this Patriots team, 20 plus points, multiple weeks in a row. You've got the Bills taking on Miami. There's so many great spots up top here to pay up for.
Where it's low ownership, though. You don't want to take that chance in like a King of the Beach when if they put up 3 points at their price, that's going to hurt you. Where if the Cardinals put up 0, it's not going to kill you. That you get to pay up. It's a week where you almost have to pay up because they priced all these running backs up, and the most juicy running backs are 6,900 and up. So that's just it's going to cause people to pay down at defense, especially in cash games where at 1.5K getting 1x, it's not going to kill you.
Yeah, that's true too. So, I mean, that's really what it is. So that's the balance. People always say, why don't you know? We don't know. We don't know that the Patriots on the road can put up another 21 point. Yeah, I do think they might. But I'll have a lot of it. John, is that kind of the tournament exposure thing? You want to get a lot of these upper end guys because you in a tournament. I think like in a legit tournament, you're not going to win it with like a 6 from your. I don't care how cheap the defense is.
No, you're going to get that defense that pops. If it's just one, obviously, then you're just going to need that defense in the GPPs. I mean, kind of the way. I mean, I don't know. Just the way I play it generally is I'm typically underneath under the market on the. Whoever the highest own for that week's going to be, and I'm usually way over the market on the lowest own because I kind of balance it out a little bit when it comes to defenses. So, it's kind of the last thing that's going to go into the build, and it's whoever fits, and I keep that as random as possible on the defenses. So I'm hoping I hit with some of these stacks with some maybe some low owned wide receiver or something like that, and then if I happen to pair that with a great defense, it pops.
That's how the money happens. All right, let's call it a day here, guys. Awesome WolfPack. This was great. I can't wait to rewatch this because when you're doing it, like there was so much good info here. I can't wait to rewatch it. So thank you guys all. John, Statsational, Kyle, Big Marley, Burns. Awesome to have you guys together. I love it when sharp minds come together, break down the slate. It opens up my eyes to a lot of things too. So that's always awesome. I appreciate everybody doing this. Good luck this week, guys. We will see everybody in Slack. All of us are hanging out in Slack all the time in DFS Army Slack, talking shit, talking about the games, answering questions. John's fucking crushing bets like a maniac. Dude, what do you like? Your numbers are so good and I don't want to talk about it. They were like 5-1, 5-1. I don't know what the fuck you're doing. I never heard
NFL's been good. Yeah, NFL's been good.
Guys, if you're not in Beat the Bookie, go over to Beat the Bookie. This is for DFS Army Subs. So if you're not part of Beat the Bookie, but you want a sports bet, get in there. There's a special price for DFS Army members. It's super cheap. It's less than any other kind of service like that. It's better than them too, the way these guys are crushing. and just go over and check it out. We have a bunch of free offer things to get a couple free months over there, Super Draft or MyBookie or a few different ones. DM John and let him get you that info. Actually, DM Fight on 2016. He'll do it too. Let John do the picks. All right. Good stuff, guys. For everyone, I want to thank you guys again, and we'll see you next time. Deuces.
Good luck. And good luck in King of the Beach, guys.
Yeah, good luck, guys.
Hell yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks guys.